Now, the 7th edition of the Adani Ahmedabad Marathon is taking place. In fact, the people who've been participating in the big full marathon, in fact, are just reaching the finish line. There you see people of the first marathon, the full marathon, are beginning to reach the finish line. Now, remember, there are two marathons that are taking place. The first one, of course, is the full marathon, and the second are the half marathons that are about 10 and 5 kilometer marathons that are being run. Also, a special marathon for people in wheelchairs also is going to be conducted. The organizers, of course, are expecting that totally about 20,000 people are going to be participating in this marathon. The marathon that is just finishing now, in fact, started at around 5 a.m. was the flag off when all these enthusiastic runners had in fact started running at 5 a.m. They were preparing since 3:30 or 4 a.m. They were warming up, all enthusiastic. Now, something so interesting about this marathon is that there are people who are very old as well as very, very young who are participating in this marathon. No age limit over here is can be seen. Now we're seeing that in this particular marathon, the first one, the second largest marathon, in fact, the full marathon is complete. People, of course, reaching the finish line. It's going to take some time to completely finish as each one of them then runs through the finish line there. Now, what we're seeing is people slowly running through the finish line of this 45-kilometer full marathon that's taking place in Ahmedabad. Another interesting detail is that there was a scenic route which this marathon took, and that is in fact one of the interesting details that made a lot of people want to run this marathon. And this marathon has been taking place since 2017 is what we're learning, and now in 2023 this big marathon takes place again with about 20,000 participants overall, including all of the marathons. Now, this is the full marathon that's just being concluded with people slowly finishing, and then we're having the half marathon that is still being run. That is the 10 and 5 kilometer marathons that are being run, and there's also a special marathon for people in wheelchairs that is also going to be taking place as part of this big initiative by the Adani group. Right, the full marathon is, of course, 42 kilometers that people have run through. There are people from very old. In fact, my colleague on the ground had spoken to someone who was 80 years old, enthusiastic, and he'd been running this marathon for 7 years. These people, in fact, when they had spoken to us, told us that they're doing it for the joy of running, but also for encouraging youngsters to live an active life, and also encourage them to participate in this particular marathon. There you have it. So many people, in fact, finishing the marathon. Running a marathon, of course, is a difficult task as it tests a person's endurance. Throughout, we're seeing a lot of these people take their time with it, but enjoy the process. As they finish this marathon, they're, of course, putting out a message of staying active, but also running for the cause of armed forces, to sort of honor the armed forces who protect us and protect this country. There are also people from the armed forces participating in this marathon. Not just athletes, but also amateur runners are part of this particular marathon. Very young children also participating enthusiastically. Early in the morning, they had started at around 5 a.m. this morning, and now they're finishing at around 7:30. We're seeing that the marathon goers are in fact running through the finish line in Ahmedabad. This is the 7th edition of the Adani Marathon, remember, and it's been taking place since 2017. This is the 42-kilometer run that has taken place. These marathon runners, in fact, have just finished their long run of 42 kilometers. This is, in fact, the full marathon that is completed. There's also a 10-kilometer and a 5-kilometer marathon that is set to be completed, and there's also going to be a special wheelchair marathon that's going to be completed. Now, on the finish line, what awaits them is, of course, celebrations and congratulations, but also there is a team of musicians waiting to play traditional drums and dhols at the end of the finish line for them. And of course, this is, as you can see, all of these marathon runners excited to finish their big run. We're going to see more of this throughout the day as well. We're going to also see marathon runners finish their half marathon. That's about 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers. That is being run majorly by amateurs. And we're seeing that this full marathon is being run mostly by athletes, which has taken them a long time to prepare for it. Now, for a particular marathon this long, in fact, it takes about months, or at least 3 months to prepare for it. So these runners that you're seeing who are finishing, who are running past the finish line, have in fact been preparing for months and in fact years of practice as well. Running various marathons has taken them to this particular stage where they're running this marathon. Most of them are running just for the pleasure of running a marathon. In fact, several of them also wanting to send the message of staying active, maintaining a healthy life, and also for honoring our armed forces. In fact, that's what they had told us earlier when they'd spoken to us as well. Almost 20,000 people, remember, are going to be participating in all of these marathons that are being held by the Adani Group. And we're going to be tracking those for you as well. These, of course, are the visuals coming in from Ahmedabad from this morning as the full marathon runners are completing their marathon. We'd seen them earlier start off at a decent pace, and now, of course, that is the beauty of a marathon, that it's not rushed into, but there's a stagnant pace that has to be kept throughout a marathon. You don't start fast and lose energy. That is also a philosophical message there, perhaps, that you have to keep going despite getting tired. Now, these marathon goers have been running for several years. My colleague is in fact on the ground who will shortly be speaking to these people who've completed the marathon. We'll talk to them and find out how they've experienced this marathon, especially because of the scenic route that they had crossed while they had been making their way towards the finish line of this marathon. That's also going to be interesting to know. Now, several of them had carried their water bottles and their energy drinks on the way as well. We're seeing several of them. In fact, most of them, as they're running through the finish line, don't seem tired at all. They seem quite enthusiastic and energetic as they finish this marathon. We're seeing, of course, families of people run as well. Now, it is in fact a group activity. This particular marathon is being organized by an expert as well, who's been organizing marathons for years and years. And we're seeing that, in fact, at the start line, there were medical personnel that were standing by, medical teams as well, in case any of them needed any sort of medical attention. So all precautions were kept in mind as well as this marathon is taking place. Now, of course, we're seeing that several of these runners are finishing this marathon that started around 5 a.m. So they've been running for around at least 2 hours now. And we're seeing that old people as well as very young people have been participating with the same enthusiastic fervor in this marathon. And that is, of course, another message there that is set to be given to people watching. Now, of course, this is the big message here is, of course, to stay active and to see that joy can be brought about if you are active and if you continue to participate despite your age, and not think that your age will be a bar in any kind of in leading an active, healthy life. In fact, several of these people, in fact, just excited to be there, excited to participate, and excited to meet other marathon goers as well. Now, this will be a feather on their cap when it comes to the number of marathons that they've run as well. 42 kilometers is no joke of a stretch that will have to be run by these marathon goers, and they have completed it with the same enthusiasm that they started it off with at around 5 a.m. today. Now, we'd seen several people that had spoken to us earlier as well when it came to the half marathons. Now, those marathons are also going to be run with the same fervor and same excitement. Several of them are amateur runners as well, and several of them from the armed forces as well. And they were very excited to take on the half marathons as well. So that is, of course, another message there, that it doesn't matter. You don't have to run an entire 42 kilometers, but even a 5 kilometer or 10 kilometer stretch is just as big and just as interesting of an achievement to make when you're finishing a marathon. Now, this marathon is supposed to be the second largest in India when it comes to marathons, and of course 42 kilometers along a scenic stretch has been completed by these marathon runners. We'll shortly be speaking to them to find out their experience and also how they've been preparing for it, because marathons are not run overnight, of course. They have been preparing for months and for years. Even some of them have been going through rigorous physical training. But that's not to say that that these people are the only people who would be able to run a marathon. Anybody can participate. All you need is the enthusiasm. So, of course, athletes as well as amateurs, kids, old people, all of them running shoulder to shoulder on this marathon with a big message for the nation, that you have to stay active, you have to stay healthy, but also trying to put out a message of honoring our armed forces, of trying to say that we need to respect them, we need to celebrate them each day as they're trying to protect our country and us. These, of course, as we see more people pouring in, of course, that's what happens in a marathon. You start off all together and then you see them disperse into separate spaces. People with more experience, more endurance, of course, had reached the finish line earlier. And you're seeing a lot of these people, in fact, several of them old people as well, waking up early in the morning and finishing this particular marathon. Of course, the time in which you finish in is the question in this marathon, but they're of course doing it not to be competitive alone, but also to be able to just finish this marathon, to be able to participate in it is in itself a very big deal. Now we're seeing several of these people reach. Now there are a group of people in the middle who had, of course, maintained that same pace of endurance. Now that group of people, we're seeing them reach the finish line there, and we're seeing several of them who had been participating, as you can see, athletes as well as old people as well as youngsters, all of them participating, finishing this particular marathon at this point.